Hi there, this is Math 8, and we're looking at Unit 1, Lesson 1, talking about moving in the plane. And so we're looking today at ways that we can describe ways that figures can move in the plane or in a flat area. And so you began today's lesson by perhaps looking at some shapes and deciding which one doesn't belong, and came up with a variety of ideas for which one doesn't belong. There's no real right or wrong answer here. Each one we could say, doesn't belong for a different reason. For example, we could say that letter A doesn't belong because all the other ones can be, you could perhaps connect the lines to form a triangle of some sort. And letter A, they go in opposite directions, so you can never have a triangle. Maybe that's why. Maybe letter B doesn't belong because it's a right angle and all the other ones have different angles, 180, acute, and obtuse. Maybe C doesn't belong because it's acute and it's the only acute angle. So it doesn't really matter what you decide. The idea is to be able to process and think about and explain, what do you think? Which one do you think doesn't belong? From there, you went into a section called the triangle square dance, and you had some different pictures that you looked at to be able to describe and talk about things that were taking place or how shapes were changing. And perhaps you watched a little video and you would watch a little pattern move and slide to the right, and perhaps after that it would slide to, let's see where it goes. Oh, it would make a little turn of some sort. Looks like it turned there. Oh, now we're sliding up to the top. We're going to turn or slide. We slide to the left. And then what happens next here? We're going to turn, looks like 90 degrees counterclockwise. And then that's just where we are. So we can pause there. And then we can look at another one here. And there are just different ways that you could describe that dance, the move that was taking place there. So for this one, for example, perhaps it's going to slide. Let's see what it does. We're facing this direction. We slide to the right. No problem. Doing great here. From there, we're going to turn counterclockwise 90 degrees or a quarter turn, and then we slid back to the left again. That's odd, but that's what we did. And then we slid up, and then from there, looks like we slid another 90 degree turn, quarter turn to the left. And so you're looking at a variety of shapes and movements there, and I'm saying what could happen. A shape might turn what we might call clockwise, right? Which means it follows a clock around that pattern. It could be counterclockwise and go the other direction. Perhaps it's just doing a 90 degree turn, which means it only goes from facing one way to then go up just like an L shape, that direction there. It could slide left to right, it could go up and down. Either way, it's on that plane and it's sliding, it's stepping, it's spinning, it's rotating, and we use lots of words to describe what was taking place there. And then you describe those words in your, describe those things with your partner. So in essence, our lesson today was just about ways to talk about how a figure in a plane can change, can move, how to position a figure in a plane without changing its shape or size. So nothing was changing in its shape or size, it just was sliding and shifting. And so you could take a shape like this and say, these shapes are the same, we're just moving it up a little bit and then over a little bit is all we're doing there. And so there might be a slide or a shift without even turning it. But sometimes we can turn or rotate something around a point, and around that point we can then tilt it and rotate it, and maybe it's a 90 degrees and maybe it's less. Just depends on what you're wanting to do in that example there. And so those are some of the things that you worked on today, just to be able to describe and talk about examples of the way this works. And so an example, for just real quick wrap it up, of a slide would be something like this first figure, where we're sliding it from left to right. An example of a turn might look more like this, where we take the shape and we're going to pivot it or slide it or rotate it a certain amount of degrees in order to go from 5 to 6. So those are things you might have said and looked at today. Now taking a look at your homework assignment tonight, just a simple assignment on moving the shapes in the plane. We had a few problems here, and it said you had 6 shapes here, and it wanted to kind of just describe how it moves from position to position for each one. And so to go from position 1 to position 2, we might say that it moves up to go from that one to that one. To go from 2 to 3, we can see we're not moving up, we're in the same spot, but instead this tip seems to be rotating that way in order to get there. So we might say that it is a rotate, and it looks like it's going to rotate, in this case here, counterclockwise because we're going to the left. So counterclockwise, And perhaps if I know my degrees, I might say 90 degrees or a quarter turn. When we look at figure 4, to get from position 3 to figure 4, we're going to go from this corner to that corner, which means we're going to go down and slide to the right. So we're going to probably say down and slide right to get to 4. When I look at 5, now this tip is going to be rotating that direction. So we would say that's a rotate clockwise, and we would just say 90 degrees. And finally here from 5 to 6, we're sliding this way, so perhaps a slide left. Just different ways to talk about and describe what you're seeing happening with those pictures, just using some simple language. For number 2, it says these 5 frames show a shape's different positions. Okay? And it just says describe how the shape moves to get from its position in each frame to the next. Again, you want to use your words to talk about how it's moving. So the first one's here, and it looks like from 1 to 2 we're going to be sliding to the right. When we look from 2 to 3, we're going to be rotating this, it looks like, clockwise because we're going like a clock, and we're going about a quarter turn, 90 degrees. To go from here to there, we can see we're going to be sliding it down. Right, we're coming from here, sliding it down to move further. And then to go from this one to this one, that's a different change there. I'm taking that shape, and what I'm doing is I'm definitely spinning it quite a few times. Let's see if I highlight this, or sorry, if I draw a copy of it. What I'm doing is I'm taking that shape and I'm rotating it not just one time, but I'm going to rotate it 2 times in order to make it get all the way around there. And so perhaps, I'll just rip this off here so we can see what it looks like by itself. Right? So here's my nice little shape. I'm pointed to the right, and there I am. And if I rotate it 1 time, that's 90 degrees, and another time, it's 180 degrees. So we might say that's a full rotation. So rotate 180 degrees. You might say perhaps even that maybe you are flipping it, and we're going from one way to the other with a flip. Up to you how you want to describe that. The point is for you to describe it in your words how you might say that. And finally, your last one today says Diego started with a shape. He moves the shape down, turns it 90 degrees clockwise. Okay, so we'll say down clockwise, then moves the shape to the right. Draw the location of the shape after each move. So that means we're going to have a little sequence like a cartoon box here. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And I can draw kind of where I started at. This is my initial. I started like this. And it says first we're going to go down. So we're going to slide this guy down. So here we go, down, down. Then we're going to turn it 90 degrees clockwise, which means we're going to be spinning it this way. So we'll make our flat part there, and we're going to cut it in and in and in and in, something like that. And then we're going to move this guy to the right. So there's my little shape and my shape, cut across, and there we are. So that's just a little sketch of what that could look like. Again, you could use some tracing paper if you wanted to, some patty paper to figure that out, and just draw it and just do the moves to see what you come up with. Hopefully that helps you out a little bit today in today's lesson. Good luck and have a great year.